There were two stories in particular that were relevant to the new book. One was actually something that happened to a cop in England. It was in the papers a while back. He was a detective and he was taking a suspect out for a drive, trying to get the guy to admit he did this killing. And eventually the guy said, well, do you want me to show you where the body is? And they were somewhere out in the moors of Yorkshire or somewhere. Do you want me to show you where the body is? And the detective said, yeah, that'd be great. So they went to this site. The guy said, there, the body's buried there. And then he said to the cop, do you want to see another one? And the police had no idea this guy had killed more than one person. So the cop went, yeah. So the guy took him to another place and said, there's another body buried there. At which point he took him back to the police station. And the cop got in trouble. The cop got in trouble because they could not prosecute the guy for the second murder. They couldn't prosecute him because the rules had not been followed. After the guy said, I've killed another one, he should have been taken straight back to the police station, read his rights, got a lawyer, etc., etc. But as the cop knew damn fine, if he'd done that, the guy might have clammed up. So the family got closure, the family of the second victim got closure, but it never went to trial. The guy could not be prosecuted for it, and the police officer nearly got kicked out of the force for not following protocol. Now that rang a bell with me. I thought, that's Rebus. He wants the result, he wants closure, and hang the consequences. It's just rules and bits of paper. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to find out this guy's killed somebody, I want to know about it. The other thing that happened specifically in Scotland was that they are talking about doing away with double jeopardy, which means that a person cannot be prosecuted for a crime if they've been found not guilty in a court, even if new evidence comes to light or if they actually own up to the crime at some future date. And this is specifically, they're talking about doing away with double jeopardy so they can prosecute a guy, or try to, for the World's End murders, which were the murders of two teenage girls in 1977. The police think they know who did it. They've put together a pretty good case, but they can't get the guy without doing away with the double jeopardy law. So those two things, added to which, in the particular case of the new book, I'd gone to a few retirement parties for cops, and I was hearing lots of stories about what happened in the Edinburgh police in the 70s and 80s. And some of the stories were outrageous. I would just walk into a corner every 10 minutes, get my phone out and start banging these anecdotes into my phone so I wouldn't forget them as the night wore on. And can you put the three of those together? Anecdotes about the way the police were in the 70s and 80s. They're doing away with double jeopardy, which means that past crimes can maybe be brought to light. And this notion of a police officer who's driven and who wants to get a result. Put the three of them together in a blender and you basically get the new book. Well, Rebus is a character who continues to surprise me, otherwise I wouldn't write about him. The only reason I continue to write about this guy is that this information about him that I know he's holding back. And I need to write more books to find out more about him. And specifically in this book, the notion, the idea in my head was when we first met him in Noughts and Crosses, he was 40, he'd been a cop for many years. The book was set 86, 87. What was he doing before that? What turned him into the cop that we met in Noughts and Crosses? And I thought, well, he would have had mentors, he would have had guys he looked up to who were older than him and who might have been more like the cops in Life on Mars, the TV show, who were allowed to break the rules with equanimity because they got results and because there wasn't the same checks and balances and the same media coverage as we have these days. Well, Fox is a guy, Fox is internal affairs, and he's a guy who thinks that kind of policing should be in the past, there should be no place for it in the present day. And so he is antithetical to Rebus's methods and ways of policing. So I thought putting the two of them together and making them work together would be interesting. And in the previous book, Malcolm Fox had become the bad guy. He was the antagonist because Rebus was the protagonist. And a lot of fans of the book said, oh, what a shame that Malcolm's become a bad guy. Because in the two previous books, he was the good guy, he was the hero. Now he's the villain. We're seeing him from the perspective of a cop he's investigating. So this book, I thought, I'm going to do a rehabilitation job on Malcolm Fox. The question of whether it's close to Black and Blue or not, there are things I was trying to do in Black and Blue that aren't germane to this. I mean, Bible John, who was a real-life killer, is a character in that book. The oil industry is a big part of that book, the Scottish economy, etc., etc. This book's much more about where Scotland might be headed. It's more about the independence referendum that's coming up in 2014, and I'm trying to get both sides of the argument by having two characters who represent, one representing yes to independence, one who represents no to independence. So there's that sort of balancing act going on in the book, and Rebus is definitely a no voter. I would have said, just thinking about the kind of person he is, he likes the status quo, he's conservative with a small c, he fears change. Siobhan, on the other hand, would be a yes supporter, I think, because she's an idealist, she's younger, she has hope for the future, etc., etc. She's not as dyed-in-the-wool as Rebus is. But it's pleasing to me, if anybody can see black and blue in this book, that's very pleasing, because I think Black and Blue is my favourite Rebus novel. It was the first of the Rebus novels where I really felt I knew what I was doing. The first detective fiction that ever grabbed me was the American urban noir. It was people like Chandler and Hammett, specifically Chandler. It was people like Lawrence Block. It was James Ellroy. It was anybody called James. James Hall, James Ellroy, James Crumley, James Lee Burke. If they were called Jim, they were in with a good chance. James Salas. I could keep going. I liked that, and you know, the things that people like Michael Connolly were doing with LA, what George Pelicanos was doing with Washington DC, bringing in some politics, bringing in some history, talking about the economy and the way the economy acts on your characters. These were kind of sociological novels. These were novels of contemporary society, and I liked all of that. Of course, Sarah Paretsky had done it first and very well in her books. So yeah, those were the people I was learning from, and specifically by the time we get to Black and Blue, I'd learned so much from James Ellroy that the book is like a homage to him. I start making up words that are kind of, you know, riffs on Ellroy making up words. The sentences get very staccato, there's a lot of slang, a lot of very short paragraphs and chapters. So there's that kind of kinetic thing that you get from a lot of American crime fiction. I mean, that's the kind of crime fiction I like. I think, you know, in Britain and the UK, I think the crime novel has started to learn from that, and then we've added our own gimlet eye. So there's a lot of satire, a lot of quite dark satire in the British crime novel now that you don't get so much in the American crime novel. And a lot of young writers who are working very hard to push the crime novel as hard as they can, which is great. It's an exciting time to be a reader, a consumer of crime fiction, I think.
How do you feel about the current trend of a lot of writers picking up the series of other writers? Is that?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting phenomenon. I read the Sherlock Holmes, which I thought was good. I mean, it was a good story, and I thought the period detail and the atmosphere were very good. That was Michael Horowitz, wasn't it? Anthony Horowitz. In general, I mean, you know, if the readers want it, I mean, there's nothing wrong with James Bond being retooled, I don't think. It's never going to be the James Bond, but it can be a pretty good approximation of it. And the same goes for people trying to mimic Agatha Christie, or I mean, Chandler was done ages ago. So, I forget the American writer who finished off Chandler's on Poodle Springs. Robert B. Parker finished off Poodle Springs Mystery, didn't he? So there's that kind of thing. And I'm not resistant to it, but on the other hand, I've got a lot of time for, I think it was Ruth Rendell who years ago said that she had written a posthumous Wexford book, i.e. a book to be published after her death that would draw a line under the series. I mean, nobody could take the character on. But as we've discovered, death is that doesn't mean there's not going to be more books. I mean, Sherlock Holmes can die and come back to life time and time again. So just killing off your main character, it's something I've not thought about with Rebus. I think physically killing him off would be a bit harsh. But can I envisage anybody writing those books after I've gone? No, not really. I mean, hopefully when I go, the series goes with me.
Philip Marlowe?
Will I read Banville's Philip Marlowe? No, probably not. Not a huge fan of Banville. I mean, for various reasons, because he was quite dismissive of crime fiction, wasn't he, in the early days when he started writing the Benjamin Black books. It's an easy gig for him to write these books. He seemed quite sniffy and dismissive of the whole genre, and a lot of us have worked hard in that genre for most of our lives and have a great respect for the writers. And it doesn't matter who you are, every crime writer I know is working very hard to do the best they possibly can. So I don't like it when people are dismissive of it. And also Philip Marlowe. Philip Marlowe is such an iconic character. I don't like the notion of... I feel I owe a lot to Raymond Chandler, because the estate of Raymond Chandler gave me $20,000 once and told me to go to the States and spend it as I saw fit. It was a thing called the Chandler Fulbright Award, and it was back in 1992. So I got to spend 6 months driving around the States with my wife and our 3-month-old son in a 1969 VW van. And if it hadn't been for Raymond Chandler, I couldn't have done that. So I like to protect him.
You debuted Dark Road, your play, recently. How did that go?
The play was, I mean, it was tough. It was hard work. It's a very different form, very different way of thinking about storytelling. I was very lucky that I did it with a co-writer, Mark Thompson, who's a playwright and also a director. So he would say to me, "No, Ian, we cannot have 75 scenes. We cannot have 110 characters. That character physically can't get from there to there. We've got to change the scenery, so it can't, you know, we need to think about this." So it was good. He did all the structural stuff. I did the storyboarding and I did the characters, and then he kind of made sure it could work on the stage. It was a great fun. I mean, it was great fun watching actors at work. It was great fun. Every night was different. We kept tweaking it. If you'd gone to the first preview night, there were fewer dead bodies at the end, and more dead bodies at the end on the first preview night than on the second preview night. We were cutting scenes, chopping lines, adding lines. It was a lot of fun, but a lot of hard work, and it was a very complex staging. There was a revolving stage, there were lights, there were projections, there was sound effects, stuff. There was a lot that could go wrong any particular night. So if I was going to do it again, I would make it 2 people in a room, 1 door, 1 table, 2 chairs. Almost nothing can go wrong. Hopefully it will tour. It was a huge success in Edinburgh. It was like, you know, difficult. I struggled to get a ticket some nights, for me. Honestly, I did. The last night I thought I wasn't going to get in. So yeah, I think people are going, "Oh well, that works." There were 2 things we set ourselves, 2 tasks we set ourselves. One, can you do contemporary crime drama on stage? Hardly anybody does it, if anybody, successfully. Yet it's on TV, film, books, hugely successful. I think we've proved you can do that. You can do a crime cop drama on stage. 2, we wanted something that would make people switch off their TV and go to the theatre. And the research showed that 40 to 50% of any night's audience had never been to the theatre before. They were switching off the telly, coming to the theatre, and when they got there, they got this real buzz. Because there were people jumping out of their seats, there were people laughing. You know, we made sure it was a big roller coaster ride. It was a big event. And because of that, because it was successful and we got, 80-odd% sales average over the run, people want to see it, people want to tour it. So it was a co-production with a Welsh company, so they'll hopefully put it on in Cardiff next year, and then I think they will tour it. England, hopefully Scotland, Northern Ireland. Let's wait and see. Maybe even America. There was some interest from America. It was a lot of fun working with actors and making them make jokes. And when one of the actors turned out to be Welsh, it was such a surprise to me because I'd written him as an Edinburgh character, so I had to take out half the jokes I'd given him. I thought, you probably won't get the resonances of a Hearts Hibs joke. I'll just change that to something else. Yeah, it was fun. And also got to work with the radio Rebus, Ron Donachie, who plays Rebus on the radio in BBC Radio 4. Whenever they do a Saturday drama with Rebus, Ron Donachie's the actor who plays Rebus, and he was in the play. It was great. I'd never met him before. Got to meet Rebus. Never meet your heroes, they say, but that was fine. Who knows when the next book will be? I don't know. I'm definitely taking a year off next year. No major projects. I'm going to write a few short stories for a collection. I've got a few festivals I'm going to that I've promised people I would go to, but writing-wise, I'm going to recharge the batteries because this little kind of book a year, tour a year thing is just getting too much. I need some time to regroup, to think about what stories I haven't told yet. Do I want to write more about Rebus? What do I do with Fox? What do I do with Siobhan, etc., etc.? Have I got anything new to say about the world? I just need some time to sit and think, which is the only thing I've not got time for the way things are at the current rate of work. So, time to think, time to scribble ideas down, and then hopefully I'll come back refreshed in 2015 with a new book. But maybe not. If the good Lord spares me. Got to say that.